Well, hello everybody. Dr. Mankel here with the wonderful Dr. Herr.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Dr. Mankel.
So we finally figured out how to make this work on Google Hangouts. Hours of painless, I wouldn't say painless, but definitely very frustrating to use this technology. And I think, Dr. Herr, we really want to make this work because shining with ADHD, or the problem of ADHD, is such a growing problem in today's society, in the world in general. We have a big vision for the community. There's so much at stake, and especially with just the lives of children, not that the quality of life, but their lives, because some of the common practices for ADHD with prescription medications and what's happening, and the side effects and the adverse effects that you're going to get into later on may not be the best strategy for these kids. So we are parents first of all. I'm a parent of 3. Dr. Hurry, you have 2 so far?
2 so far.
2 so far, okay.
Hopefully
So
that's it.
we want to bring together some powerful information to really just to get you to understand more about ADHD, and really looking at it in a way that there are some real talents behind some of these kids. If we can get them to express those talents, that's why we called it Shining with ADHD. So we do this because, as I mentioned earlier, it's the kids' health are at stake, and also within the community as well. So I'm hoping you'll sit back and take some notes here over this next several minutes of time to really take note of what we're going to present to you. Hopefully you can apply it. We're here to present the information. We don't want to sell you anything here, but we do want you to walk away with some different insights about what it is, the gifts that are really behind some of these kids, the common practices about it, and then what has been our solution, being family pediatric chiropractors for several years now, and combined, 30 years now, Doctor, in training. How we've really helped hundreds of these kids in really more of a natural, holistic chiropractic fashion, and we'll get into that and near the end explain how that's worked, and we've got a great story of one of our patients we'll share with you as well. So sit back, and I hope you enjoy the information, because I know it'll help your children express more of their talents in their life. Dr. Herr.
So let's start off with what's happening here with these children, and what are the options and what's happening in terms of the choices that the parents are forced with. So as of 2010, at least 3 million children in Canada under the age of 18 were diagnosed with ADHD, according to the Mental Health Canada statistics. So it's become a big problem, and what we want to do is go over what right now are the options for families to help with this problem. And it's kind of scary that we have this many children that
3 million, exactly.
3 million, right? That are suffering with ADHD. And we go further into it, and all kids with attention deficit disorders are described this powerful drug, which amounts to 3.5% of children and teens are on Ritalin. So about 2/3 of all children that are given this diagnosis of ADHD, right now their only option for them is to be put on medication.
Medically,
yeah. Right. And there's 2/3 of them are taking Ritalin, so that's actually pretty scary. And when we were prepping for this workshop, and one of the things that you came across in terms of research is you mentioned that certain military forces around the world, if you're on any of these prescription medication, you can't apply.
They will not accept you.
They will not accept you.
No.
So let's go over to what some of the criteria is. So ADD and ADHD, they're different things. So let's go over ADD. In order to be diagnosed with it, the intention, you need to have 6 of these 9. I'm not going to spend too much time, because if you're on this presentation, you know somebody or yourself, or you have family members that have given this diagnosis. So often fails to give close attention to details or makes careless mistakes in schoolwork. Often has difficulty sustaining attention in tasks, play activities. often does not seem to listen when spoken to directly, often does not follow through instruction and fails to finish schoolwork, chores, duties, workplace. I mean, that sounds like every kid to me.
Actually, doctor, I have some of those now.
I do too. You can ask. I bet you can ask both our wives.
Yes, exactly.
Often has difficulty organizing tasks and activities, avoids, dislikes, or reluctant to engage in tasks or activities that require sustained mental effort, such as schoolwork or homework, loses things necessary for tasks or activities, often easily distracted by extraneous stimuli, and awful forgetful in daily activities.
Man, I would have been classified this a long time ago.
Yeah. And then hyperactivity, impulsivity, physics with hands, feet, squirms, and seat, leaves the seat in classroom or in other situations in which remaining seated is expected, runs about or climbs excessively in situations in which it is inappropriate, often has difficulty playing or engaging in leisure activities, often on the go, as if driven by a motor, often talks excessively, often blurts out answers before questions have been completed, often has difficulty awaiting turn, often interrupts or intrudes on others, so butts into conversations or games.
So they need to have 6 out of the 9 to qualify for a diagnosis of ADD or ADHD. And some of these kids, doctor, only have maybe even a couple of them, and they're getting diagnosed with it.
That's true. And the thing that's interesting is sometimes these things can also mimic other health problems, and a lot of these things are coming from teachers, right? Teachers are making recommendations to get these students tested, and it's difficult now with teachers. They have larger school classroom sizes, so to be attentive to some of these children. The thing that's important about this that this criteria has to be present for at least 6 months, maladaptive and inconsistent with developmental level. Some symptoms that are caused were present before the age of 7. Some impairment from symptoms are present in 2 or more settings. So once again, often we're hearing it from the teachers, and I've had one case where mom says, I don't see this stuff at home, but they're saying that it's coming from the school. So it has to be present in 2, and there must be clear evidence of clinical significant impairment in social, academic, or occupational function.
Dr. Hurd, just today a mother told me that the only problems they're having is really at home. He wants to play, doesn't want to do his homework. But in school he's actually quite fine. Yes, he's got a little more energy, but he's actually doing the work.
So what are the experts saying? So this picture here is picture Ned Howell. He's a medical doctor, and he's kind of a world expert in ADHD. Why is he a world expert? He's written several books, but I think most importantly, he himself was diagnosed with ADHD. And he goes on to say, he says, in my opinion, ADHD is a terrible term. As I see it, ADHD is neither a disorder nor is there a deficit of attention. I see ADHD as a trait, not a disability. And when it's managed properly, it can become a huge asset in one's life. So it's a different viewpoint. Like, we're not looking at this as a disorder. What we're doing is we're looking at these children, which we see more of in our office, and we see the adults with the ADHD, that they have these gifts that we're really trying to unwrap and
yes.
Help them really maximize their potential as human beings.
Absolutely.
So some of the traits of ADHD, they're syndromes of a paradox. So if we look at some of the ones that are very common, and we look at distractibility. If you look at the other side, curiosity, hyperactivity, right? Energetic. So many of us, when we're 71 years of age, I'm pretty sure we'd be pretty happy if we were energetic, disruptive yet peacemaking, impulsive yet creative. So there's these traits, and what we want to do is talk about how do you go out and how do you draw out these gifts. Again,
they can be focused in one spot at school, but maybe not so much at home, because it actually is more to distract them at home.
And there's a classic example. If you're familiar with the gentleman David Neilman, he's the inventor of JetBlue. He was diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, and one of the things with him, he's kind of because of his impulsivity, he was also very creative. He's actually the one that invented the electronic ticket. So when you take a plane,
Oh,
and so he shares a story that when they launched that, he was driving home when it launched, and his company had now just made hundreds of millions of dollars based on that launch. But as he was driving home, he felt just as stupid and as a big of a loser as he did in high school, right? Because we've created this kind of this general thing that these kids, these people, that they can't do anything good, they're not going to amount to anything. But once again, if we can use these traits and these gifts to allow to them to express their unique talents and gifts, maybe we find the next David Neilman.
right. And we acknowledge, obviously, with parents, their biggest issues is if they really are getting, little John is being put in the corner all the time, or he's getting notes from school and he's not actually learning, he's having problems writing. And so we see that there's obviously a challenge there, and we're going to get to the solution, but we just don't want to label this thing as an illness.
Yes, and we want to stop the negative feeling associated with this. So as we like to describe it, is having ADD is like having a powerful race car for our brain, but with bicycle brakes. So you have this amazing, powerful engine, and it's revving and it's going fast. And what our goal is we want to become the brake specialists. We want to strengthen those bicycle brakes so that these kids are not, or these people are not crashing and burning and spinning out of control and getting into trouble.
Whereas medications kind of slow the engine.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right. And there's many other successful people in life that would have been labeled or were labeled as ADD or ADHD, and we all know this gentleman, Albert Einstein. He was described as mentally slow, unsociable, and adrift in his foolish dreams. Leonardo da Vinci, he was classified as being ADHD. And Winston Churchill, he refused to study mathematics, Greek, Latin, and was placed in the lowest form. So imagine if we had suppressed the gifts that these people have, and how different the world would be today. So when these kids are labeled and they're associated into this kind of box, it's their parents, people are looking for solutions, and right now this is a hot topic, right? It's all over the media. Parents are asking questions, what are their options? And right now, they're medically speaking, their real only options are different medications. And because these children are damaging, destructive, underachieving, we as parents and teachers, we want to do everything that we can do to help them. And in terms of solutions, well, right now there's only one option, and this is it.
And the question, Dr. Herr, is, can we really try this just once? I mean, some of the things you're going to get into, the adverse effects, are quite serious. And as a parent, can we afford to try this even once?
And we share this information with you because, we're both very often surprised when parents come in here and we ask them, do you know, have you spoken to your doctor about these medications? And they said, well, no, not really. Do you know some of these side effects? And quite often the answer is no. So let's look at some of the most common things that out there: Ritalin, Vyvanse, Concerta, Adderall, and why they're so controversial. They have severe side effects. Ritalin is classified as a Schedule II controlled substance. It's the same class as cocaine. And here, once again, as you mentioned, what's happened is we're looking for the chemical solution, right? We're trying to numb and slow down that engine. This rating is also given to prescription drugs that have the greatest abuse dependence potential. I've talked about this. These are other drugs that are in this category are morphine, cocaine. What these drugs really do is they juice up the nervous system. They act on the dopamine levels in the brain, the serotonin levels, which are the mood enhancers. And speaking to some of these teachers, we're calling this in some of the schools and the classrooms it's kiddie cocaine, right? And these drugs come with a black box label, and you look at it, the ADHD drug spending surged 369% in children under 5 years.
Wow,
that's unbelievable. Children under 5 years old, are being medicated like this.
Crazy.
Why? Because we continue the production of this methylphenidate is up 500% since 1990, according to the Drug Enforcement Administration. It's become called vitamin R as a party drug. They're crushing tablets into powder form, snorting it. For them, it acts as a stimulant like cocaine. A friend of mine who's a teacher here and he's also a football coach, and he shared a story one time over dinner where he was coaching these two kids in football, and he just noticed that something was just off. They just, well, not off. They were just, their engine was revving more than usual, and they just all over the field. And he kind of went over, he just kind of looked into their face masks, and he noticed that pupils were extremely dilated. So he knew that these kids were on something. And after some interrogation, what they had found is that they had gotten some classmates Ritalin medication and snorted it before the game to kind of give them an edge. And it's scary because and we make up 5% of the world's population, but we consume 95% of the psychotropic drugs in the world. And then what's happening, we've talked about some of the side effects, but it's leading to dependency on drugs, and it's changing behavior patterns in the brain, right? Melvin Nash, a criminal lawyer, says that 50 to 60% of the people he represents for everything from traffic violations to armed robbery have been on these medications at some point in their life. So what are the specific side effects of this, especially using Ritalin, Adderall? Stunting of growth, depression, insomnia, nervousness, skin rash, anorexia, nausea, dizziness, abdominal pain, heart rhythms. We've heard boys saying that they feel like their heart is going to explode.
All the time.
Psychosis and chronic usage, blood pressure changes, pulse changes, Tourette's syndrome, where it's a condition that is reversible, and it's characterized by the body tics, spasms, making noises, just uncontrolled obscenities. And here was a report that was done right in our backyard here in Ottawa, where what they had done is they had kind of kept a secret, unfortunately. They had found 600 cases of Canadian kids suffering serious, sometimes fatal side effects linked to ADHD medication over the past 10 years. That's 600 cases. That's one a week. That's one serious side effect a week. And these are coming from the cases that have been reported. So imagine what hasn't come in, what's not reported.
This one scares the daylight out of me, doctor, because obviously we live in a community where for parents as well, and these kids who are on these things altering the way that their brains function.
It's very scary. So, and here's the kicker. Research that's been done regarding some of these medications, and that they found that children with ADHD medication perform progressively worse over 4 years of standardized tests. So you're giving these medications, there's potential serious side effects, and when we follow them over 4 years, the children are actually performing worse. So what's the risk-benefit scenario here with
right.
With these children? And so you may be wondering, well, if drugs are not the answer, then what can you do for your child that has behavior or focus challenges? And what makes our program Shining with ADHD dramatically different? And what Dr. Manko is going to do, he's going to get into the specifics of maybe other options and what you can do with what we do with our ADHD protocol with children here.
So for the past several years, one of our protocols with ADHD is to, again, looking at the nerve system and look where the stress is, doctor. Where are the brakes failing? We know that they've got an amazing power in the brain, but where are the brakes not working to adapt that individual to the school life and so forth? And we know that stress in the nervous system almost like creates static on the line. It starts to create more of an engine revving of the brain when we don't have the brakes on. So we don't have that balance of the nerve system. So the number one cause of nerve stress, we call it vertebral subluxation. That's where the spine can either misalign or it can be fixated with a lack of motion of the spine. And we'll talk about sort of how kids develop that. The other part that we're going to look at is of a brain-based examination, looking at their balance, strength, and looking at eye coordination as well. And there's things we look at as well about nutrition, how that affects the nerve system. Whether are they deficient in certain things, and are they toxic in certain chemicals that can create too much excitement within that engine. So those are the three things that we're looking at. Is we're looking for nerve stress called subluxation, looking at the brain specific examination of brain function, and then nutrition is the other part of it. And we add those three together, doctor, we get like a 1-2 punch. We really have seen some amazing changes. So we know that again, Dr. Hearn mentioned ADD is like having this race car brain with bicycle brakes. So we're going to focus on how do we strengthen those brakes, because we know the brain. So the stresses of that cause ADHD and other illnesses as well, they come from physical stress like a birth trauma, slips or falls, poor posture, chemical stresses mostly into our food, as well as the emotional stress that people go through.
Would you say in our cases that you've noticed patterns, especially in the birth process, where there's been physical stress or the mom has been under stress during pregnancy or during the birth process?
Well, doctor, there seems to be like a perfect storm where there's a common recipe for the development of whether it be ADHD or neurodevelopmental disorders. There's a stressful pregnancy, there was a breech presentation, there was a medical intervention during the birth process where there ends up being either forceps, vacuum, or cesarean, and we've altered the total way that the nervous system is supposed to be stimulated right from the birthing process. So yeah, there's typically a common recipe and a common findings with most of these kids. So, and the pregnancies.
So the engine is revving right up from birth on.
Right from the get-go. So understanding chiropractic, because I mean we're pediatric chiropractors talking about ADHD, and you know most people understand that we help people with back issues and neck issues, but really it's really not so much doing about sore backs, but more so with the function of the nervous system and its ability to perceive the environment and to coordinate all the cells of the body. That is what the nervous system does. Perceives the environment and coordinates the behavior of all of the cells. Sound familiar? Coordination, behavior, keywords here. And that's all under the control of the nerve system. So here's kind of a basic anatomy 101 where the brain spinal cord connection, where it kind of shows us that everything is connected to that power source into the brain, and where there is nerve stress in the spine that can ignite the brain even further to rev its engine, and yet the brakes being ineffective. So there's a balance in the body called homeostasis, and when there's subluxations of the spine or injury of the spine, then it's going to alter the balance of that relationship between brain and body function. Some technology, Dr. Heard, that we use called thermal thermography is to run this non-invasive testing up the spine to measure where the nerve stress is. It gives us a pretty decent picture of the stress in the nerve system and how that person's adapting to their environment. So what causes this subluxation? We mentioned birth trauma, and birth trauma is probably the #1 way that this actually begins. And you can rush you out, but this is the reality. The head presents first. If it does, then they twist on the head to get the shoulders out, which are a bit wider, and you can actually see the amount of stress in that spinal column and what happens to the nerve system. One of the first things we'll start to see is a failure to latch, Dr. on the breast, because the range of motion is not there within the baby's neck, and the mother perceives that as being a latching issue. Then they have difficulties with bowel function, and colic becomes an issue. Then we see issues with behavior, hyperimmunity from there.
And I've noticed this pattern too when we ask the parents about how those few months were, and they always seem to say that, I always ask, was your baby nice to relax? It was a floppy baby. No, the baby was very rigid, always arching and trying to almost like stretch himself.
The stress response, totally. And then obviously if they've been involved in car accidents, falls, And kids fall hundreds of times just learning how to walk. And then they get involved in taekwondo and sporting injuries. Then we put them at these desks for years and with poor posture. Now the advent of video games. That all starts adding more stress to the engine and creating that imbalance within the nerve system. So those are the major causes of subluxation, the stress to the nerve system. And so we look at someone's posture, you start looking at kids, they seem to have this head tilt to one direction. And that's a sign, Dr. Herr, where there is a subluxation altering the structure. And if you alter the structure, you alter the function. It's kind of the 1-2 thing that happens there. Now, when you have subluxations in kids, it can create different issues. In adults, it can also create something else. So depending on where the nerves are affected, the nerves of the upper spine affects the immune system. Some kids complain about headaches, but we see it very commonly with adults. It affects in the upper face area, the middle ear, so we see ear problems and ear infections. Creates sinus problems. It affects their vision and also affects their hearing. The nerves in the middle of the spine, upper back, that go to the shoulders, the thyroid area, affects metabolism. We've seen chronic tonsillitis as a result of that. Goes into the jaw area and also parts of the ears and nose. A bit lower in the spine, these nerves go into the heart, lungs, bronchial tubes. So we'll see kids with breathing issues and asthma issues. Adults will complain about heart palpitations. It can affect digestion of the gallbladder, liver, stomach, and kidneys, just to name a few. And especially the adrenal glands, which is a stress organ, and that would also be affected to adversely affect more of the stress response. Constipation is a big one, so they bind up quite a bit when there's nerve stress as well. And that's one of the perfect storm presentations as well. In the lower spine, these affect into the pelvis, the hip area. In women, these subluxation can cause infertility. It can affect the pelvis, the hip. People understand sciatica in older patients, and that's a common thing in this part of the spine. So again, these nerves direct function. The spine protects it, and when there's subluxations, it adversely affects the nervous system. We also cranial work, and so some based on head shape and what it's been a process, or from head injuries or concussions, there's areas of the skull that can misalign, that can adversely put pressure on parts of the brain, and certain parts of the brain have different systematic functions as well. So that's part of a protocol, is to do an evaluation of the skull as well. So here's a couple of cases. We'll wrap up here soon. Here's a 12-year-old who was on Ritalin. Here's one of the scans. You can see the red areas here and the black zones. These are telling us high nerve stress. 12 adjustments later, you can see the scan. We see a whole lot less red and no black. And in the third scan, 24 adjustments later, we see all the red gone. And you can, again, we start to see more function, improved behavior, better focus, and just kids just living outrageously and becoming very, very talented. So again, just balancing the nervous system. Looking at someone's a bit older here, Devin here, you can see the head position forward, and on the x-ray on the right, the dark line is where they're supposed to be, the dotted line is where they are. Also is getting headaches and was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. Wasn't referred here for that, but just for the bad headaches. And we began to, thank you very much, we began to work on correcting the spine, getting pressure off this nerve system. You can see his posture on the after and the x-ray improvement on the right. They could not believe the change in the behavior as a result of just improving the function of the nervous system.
And you talk about the amazing changes in the nervous system, the stress response to the children, but the other thing that we hear from the parents is they enjoy having their kid back because there's a tremendous amount of stress that the parents are at wits' end. There's so they're always a constant battle. They're yelling, they're fighting, and they feel like they're depriving their other kids of time because there's so much energy being put forward towards the child with ADHD. So just the stress response at home, it's changed.
It's throughout the whole family.
Yeah.
We definitely see that. So here's one of our stories of our cases, if I can get this to present just right for you here.
doctor, there was always something that he would find. And then when it came to keeping up in the class, well, that sort of thing, the fact that he was, slowing down, not getting to work, and not able to do it fast, turned into, well, now I'm stupid. Started very low self-esteem. He would say that every day. I'm stupid. I don't want to, I can't do that. I don't want to do this. I can't learn it because I'm stupid. We've seen a complete turnaround in this movie. We're still working on self-confidence, but in terms of being happy, being a kid, just doing what you're doing and not having to worry about the future results of whatever it was that you were doing. That all seems to be gone. The anxiety is gone. You still have a little trouble with concentration, but I think that's because he wasn't well and he was supposed to be learning those skills, so I have to teach them to him. But he's a different boy. He's smiling, he's laughing, he's having fun, he's playing. He has a ton of friends, and he doesn't say to us anymore, I don't have any friends. I don't want to exist. I am stupid. He doesn't say that anymore because I don't believe that he feels it anymore. But yeah, we're all happy because now when we decide that we're going to take a small trip and we're going to go somewhere, and we're going to spend a day having a picnic, we know he's going to have fun. You always know as a parent, you know your kid, and you know if something is not right. And that's something that's not right could be so many things. It could be, maybe there's something in the food that they're eating that's not right. Maybe there's something medically that's not right, or maybe they need something. But nobody maybe we need to have what do you call it? Like a neurological exam. Neurochecking, yeah. Nobody thinks to think of, I need to see my doctor, that route. Nobody goes the other route, which I think in Carmelo's case, the medication did not help him. In fact, it made it worse. And I think it's pretty obvious that whatever the source of his troubles were not medical related in that sense.
I'm glad we could play that story for you with Jane and Carmelo's story there. Just was amazing. This is kind of why we put this together for you. So as we got through quite a bit of content and information about what are the trends with this trait and what's available to you, been in practice for almost 23 years, and we definitely realize that people are not aware of what is possible, what's other solutions for them. And as we wrap up for you, a lot of you are probably wondering. You're sitting here, you listen to this presentation for the last 30 minutes, and you're really wondering and curious. Does my child have subluxation and nerve stress in their spine, and could it be causing their behavior and their anxiety issues and difficulty learning? And so we want not only to make available to you, but a special opportunity, and that opportunity is for your child to get a complete neurological checkup. That's who's listing there. We don't want to walk away from the presentation hoping that you would get checked, but we want to make sure that at least give you the option of the availability to get a checkup. And for anyone who's listening, and even the parents, you may wonder if you have subluxations putting stress on your nerve system and whether they're causing some of your problems. So we make this available for the listeners who are on this Hangout listening to it. The examination is normally $147. Only $47 for the complete checkup. That includes the consultation, the very thorough examination and x-rays, and the thermal scan. It's only $47. So people listen to it. There's going to be a lot of you listening, so we have limited appointments. So we ask that you call the office here that's listed to you. We are a Barhaven, Ontario, here near Ottawa. If you want a referral to someone else who we know who does pediatric chiropractic work, please let us know, and I will find someone in your area who can serve you and your families. Please, if you'd like to subscribe to the YouTube channel, we're putting up more of these really rich content. Google Hangouts, Dr. Her, now that we've figured the technology out. I hope you like us on Facebook, because we'll really share some really powerful information for you to help enrich your own lives on a lifestyle basis. And And there's our website for you there. So we want to make that available to you. So please take down that number and give the office a call and schedule that checkup for you and your families.
Well, and I really enjoyed sharing this information with you. And we know everyone's time is important because we could probably sit here and talk for hours regarding this topic. So we've gone over a lot of information in a short period of time. But one thing I think you've kind of just grazed over, you've said the word a couple of times. You said pediatric chiropractor, and that's probably a new term for a lot of people that are listening. What does that mean? Well, number one, we're certified by the International Chiropractic Pediatrics Association, and we have to thank them to help us, develop some certainty in helping these children. And I want to share this because it just happened last week where we had, a family that referred their son in that was kind of, suffering with these type of health problems, and the dad had been getting adjusted for years, and when the mom brought him in for his first adjustment and took him home, the dad was like, "Well, mom, how was it? So was it scary?" And the mom was like, "No, it's totally different. The way that they care for children, the way that they adjust children is very, very different.
Very gentle.
Yeah, it's about the same amount of pressure that we apply as if you were checking if a tomato was ripe. The spines are very different, adults and children, and the care is very different.
So again, we hope we've enlightened you and you've learned from this, and we hope that you take us up on the opportunity. And we have really one objective, and that's to find out whether you or your child have subluxation and whether we can help you. And we'll sit down and go over the report with you and explain to you what we found and how we can help and how much it'll cost to help you. So we look forward to seeing you at your appointment time. Have a great day. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Thank you.